The Knives Out franchise is one I've made an effort to keep up with in every new release. Now with the release of Wake Up Dead Man, we've reached a trilogy, which means Film Bros can rank them in a list that will get a total of 2 likes on Letterboxd. Follow me on Letterboxd, by the way. The murder mystery subgenre of crime fiction seems to be a rare breed nowadays. The only somewhat close comparison, I guess, is the Poirot movies, the modern iterations with Kenneth Branagh in them, which doesn't seem to be in a great spot right now. Yikes. So it's pretty nice to see some consistency in something like this, cause when they're done right, they can be really fun, which brings us to Wake Up Dead Man, the third movie in the Knives Out franchise, directed by Rian Johnson, who a lot of internet basement dwellers consistently blame for ruining Star Wars, because they had him direct The Last Jedi. However, you'll take a look at that movie and realize half the time it at least looks pretty visually appealing, even if the story doesn't work in certain places. This movie stars Daniel Craig, Josh O'Connor, Josh Brolin, Glenn Close, and many others as per usual with these movies. This film follows a young priest named Judd Duplessis, who is sent to assist a charismatic Monsignor Jefferson Wicks. After a sudden and seemingly impossible murder rocks the town, the lack of an obvious suspect prompts local police to join forces with renowned detective Benoit Blanc to unravel a mystery that defies all logic. But all this being said, how's about I quit my yapping and get into reviewing? I'm going to start with the performances, which I'll lead with Daniel Craig. Craig is an actor who I'm sure many of you needs no introduction. He's of course known for films like a couple of the modern James Bond movies, and most recently he was in the movie Queer, which I think next to his role as Benoit Blanc could be easily seen as career defining for him. He's pretty incredible in that. Craig brings his usual charisma to Blanc in this movie. He carries himself with the easygoing, almost uncaring vibe, while also maintaining a level of compassion for the accused in the movie. With all these movies, Blanc always does what feels like anything he can to defend whoever gets accused in the film's murder, and it can be sweet to see this side of the character. Craig brings a great deal of humor to the role. Like always, he's able to elevate the material in the screenplay through specific line readings with Blanc's borderline pretty ridiculous accent. There's one scene in particular where Blanc plays an organ, which was pretty fun to see. Surprisingly, there were times where it felt like Blanc was sidelined here, but it did make me realize that he isn't, and technically never really is, the main character of these movies, despite showing up in all of them. That usually falls to another character, which in this case is Josh O'Connor. Josh O'Connor is really great here. It's fascinating to see the amount of different emotions he's able to convey, sometimes in short succession of each other. It's endearing to see early moments of the film where Josh O'Connor presents this wide-eyed wonder that comes with passion in his heart to being a priest, which quickly transitions into being completely distraught most of the time when his fate is tested constantly. He is grappling with the weight of the world on his shoulders, and he's able to show this off pretty well. He does a good job at elevating the humor in the script from his own brand of comedic timing and specific line readings, which never failed to get a laugh out of me when these moments were there. There were also moments where he displayed a level of rage in certain scenes, which he presented really well. He pulled together an extremely impressive performance that I believe will further solidify him into superstardom. Josh Brolin plays the role of Monsignor Wicks, who is the head of the main church setting of this movie. Brolin, of course, is known for roles such as No Country for Old Men, and most recently in films like Dune and Weapons. I thought he did a good job at balancing a great deal of humor and charisma while also being an easily hateable piece of shit. This aspect he pulls off well, just from the way he speaks. Every word that comes from his lips are an expert form of manipulation that you never know if he's being sincere, which for someone being in the church is pretty ironic. At the same time, like I said, he brings a great deal of humor to the role. So many lines he says is just completely unhinged that you can't help but laugh at the things that he says. There's moments where he can seem pretty threatening too, which is something that he always pulls off well and does so here. Glenn Close is in this movie too, and I really enjoyed what she brought to her role. For most of the movie, she acts as one of those annoying religious fanatics, so half the time she is overacting, raving frantically, but once the third act of this thing kicks into gear, she displays a great deal of emotion, which had me extremely engaged with her character. She did a good job at making a character that wouldn't usually gain any sympathy seem very sympathetic. Mila Kunis is here too. She spends a good amount of time hanging around Daniel Craig and Josh O'Connor's character. Unfortunately for me, I felt like she could have been written out of the movie, and I don't think it would have made that much of a difference. Her style of acting strangely just didn't fit here. There were moments where her line readings always felt as if she was questioning the material for the first first time. And I guess for the role of a police chief, it makes sense to her to always be questioning stuff, but it never felt genuine to me. Jeremy Renner is in this too, and despite one or two funny lines thrown in here and there, he also didn't do much for me. Half the time it felt like he was sleepwalking through his performance, which for the type of character he is does make sense from time to time, but it did get pretty graining. I guess it doesn't help that the guy just left a bad taste in my mouth with recent things that have come out about him though. I thought Cailee Spaeny was good for the time she had on screen, but she really had nothing to do in this movie. All her line deliveries were very sincere, of course, and she handled the material well, but there wasn't much room for a character to flourish. The same can be said for most of the rest of the ensemble here. It seems the more and more these movies go on, the less these massive casts have to do throughout the runtime. I hope this is something that gets corrected by the time the fourth movie is made, because the first movie especially somehow did a really good job at balancing a shit ton of characters for the amount of time that they were all on screen. I thought the story in this movie was super compelling and was structured really well. Getting two backstories for important characters essentially back to back was entertaining. Seeing how certain elements of the mystery would come together like usual with these movies is always super entertaining to see unfold. With this being the longest in the series so far, I was worried there would be a slog at one point, but for me this never came to be. Whether it was the story or the visuals, I was always entertained by what I was seeing on screen. While I did say the ensemble didn't get much to do, it was still fun when each character was being introduced in the first act. I think this segment did make the later revelation of these characters not having much to do hurt a little more, but when scenes like this are written well, it can be a good time getting to know some quirky looking characters. By the time the third act rolls around, there's so many well written twists displayed here. Some are surprising, some are predictable, but I think that's the beauty in a film like this. If it keeps you guessing, it's definitely doing something right. Moving on, I want to talk about the cinematography in this movie. Not only do I believe this is the best looking film in the franchise so far, but I think it could easily be up there with one of the best looking movies of 2025 overall. The cinematography was done by Steve Yedlin, who had done cinematography for the past two Knives Out movies. The first Knives Out obviously looks great still to this day, but I can't stress enough how gorgeous this thing is. Seeing it on the big screen especially helped the look of this thing. I feel bad for people whose first time watching this movie will be on Netflix, as I think it would give the same kick. There's a lot of fun techniques used here. At one point they even pull out a split diopter, which got me excited. While I do want to talk about the cinematography, a major part of why this movie looks good is the use of lighting and the use of color in this. So many bright, vibrant colors are used, like reds and blues and even some greens at one stage, which made for such a feast on the eyes. There's really interesting use of color filters on camera lenses, where a part of the screen will be colored while the rest is normal. It makes for a really trippy effect, which gave a unique feel to certain scenes. This is such a visually rich film from start to finish that it makes it hard to believe that it's considered a Netflix movie. I'm not entirely sure what category this falls under, but I thought the overall vibe of this movie was great. It brings a very gothic feel to the film, which hasn't been seen in previous Knives Out installments. While the nighttime scenes are firstly lit with these deep blues, which makes you able to see what's going on, there's times where the landscapes are covered with fog to create an overall eerie atmosphere to the whole thing. The church setting gave way to some pretty strong thematic elements, which for someone like me, in my Irish roots, made the themes resonate deeply. There's a lot done in this movie which makes for an interesting and layered watch, which could make for interesting rewatches as well. With all that being said, I really like this movie. I joked about rankings earlier, but this could easily be the second best movie in the series so far. It definitely has me excited to see what Rian Johnson and team have in store for the fourth movie. Seeing a movie like this with an audience also made for a great, unforgettable experience. An experience unfortunately Netflix seems dead on killing in the next couple of years. As many of you know, a few days before this movie had been released in theaters, there was the announcement of Netflix buying Warner Brothers, which in fairness isn't meant to come into fruition until the end of next year, but it could easily lead to some less cinematic experiences being as enjoyable as this one, since Netflix has their dumb rule of having limited theatrical releases on the preface that Netflix's CEO gives off the vibe of not believing in the cinematic experience. To be clear, there is a scene in this movie which starts off as a relatable first world problem piece of comedy, which quickly shifts into an attention-grabbing, riveting piece of drama. Not only is the scene well written, but it's done in such a way that you can physically feel the energy shift in the room when this happens, which is something you can only get in a cinema. So the idea of that being taken at some stage is just soul-crushing, but I personally don't think this experience will ever truly die out. I'm giving Wake Up Dead Man 4 stars. This movie is really well acted with a truly standout performance from Josh O'Connor. The guy really is fantastic with whatever he's given. Along with that, this is such a visually interesting and overall gorgeous looking film from start to finish. This film is thought-provoking with the franchise's usual brand of commentary, which can blend actual conversational topics with brilliantly written satire to both. I doubt this is a movie franchise I will ever get tired of. What started as an original IP is slowly starting to become a cultural icon among film fans, and for good reason, as all these movies have been pretty well made so far, and for my money, if the quality maintains the same level as it is since its inception, it could easily be a franchise worth talking about for years and years to come. As per usual on my channel, I would recommend anyone go see this in the movie theater. However, due to my poor planning, by the time this video comes out, I doubt it would even be running in theaters anymore, sadly. As I said numerous times in the video, this is on Netflix. However, with their attitude towards cinema and the cinematic experience, I will not be a shill for such a shallow company, and recommend anyone who wants to check this great piece of art out should just pirate it instead. And if there's even the slimmest chance some theaters are still deciding to run it, and check it out there instead.